and welcome to Indian Standard Time, a show that speaks to global leaders and thinkers, to people who have made their mark on the sands of time. In this very special edition of Indian Standard Time, I'm in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, and in conversation with Mr. Amrullah Saleh, the former intelligence chief of Afghanistan and currently leading a grassroots movement. Mr. Saleh, welcome to Rajya Sabha TV.
Thank you, ma'am.
So you gave over as Afghanistan's intelligence chief in 2010, am I right?
June 2010, yes.
Okay, and then that's when you began this movement, soon after handing over your position.
You are right.
Okay, so what makes a former intelligence czar of Afghanistan, and you were the chief in a very, very difficult and interesting period under the presidency of Mr. Hamid Karzai, what made you, I know you gave up because there was a blast at the Loya Jirga in 2010, but what made you take up this grassroots movement? What made you sort of begin this?
Just to remind you that I was a political appointee. My background comes from anti-Taliban struggle, and my background comes from the time of resistance against what we call creepy Pakistani invasion of Afghanistan, which is post-collapse of Dr. Najibullah, that they wanted to dominate Afghanistan, and we resisted parts where we were putting tough resistance against them. In 2010, I saw the political will being weakened in the leadership of Afghanistan. I saw a type of war fatigue prevailing, so people trying to adopt a policy of appeasement towards the Taliban, and we knew that this will not work. So we therefore lost hope in remobilizing political will at the government level. So I left the intelligence job and I came back to what I call my roots.
Okay.
I went back to the people. I said, the enemy is not defeated. They have relaunched a very deadly insurgency, and their aim is to redominate Afghanistan, and we know who they are.
So who are they? Who are they? Who is the enemy?
They have a complex identity, but that identity basically is defined by what they do and their objectives. And their objective is, A, to bring their own interpretation of Sharia law in the society.
This is the Taliban. Okay.
Suppress human rights, and particularly rights of women.
Okay.
And they fight to topple the democratic society in Afghanistan, and they fight to topple pluralism in Afghanistan, and they are a reactionary force. So therefore, it is violence, it is terrorism, it is a message through barrel of the gun, which defines the Taliban.
I want to bring you to an earlier comment of yours where you said there was a creeping Pakistani invasion. Are you saying that the Pakistani establishment was supporting or merging with the Afghan Taliban and promoting an ideology of violence?
In 1992, the Mujahideen forces who captured Kabul, they were not puppets of Pakistani establishment. They were mainly forces loyal to late Commander Ahmad Shah Massoud, who the Pakistanis did not like, and with whom they did not have a good and straight relations. So since 1992, Pakistanis relaunched another frustrating warfare to capture Kabul through Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, who was their boy, who was their main man within the Mujahideen groups. Hekmatyar brutalized Kabul. He bombarded Kabul city. He basically reduced more than half of the city to rubbles and ruins, and became a hated figure, and he could not achieve what the Pakistanis wanted of him. So they created the Taliban.
All right.
When they created the Taliban, the difference between 80s and early 90s was that Taliban were directly trained, assisted, helped both strategically, operationally, and tactically by Pakistani army. So, for example, SSG was fighting alongside the Taliban. It is Special Services Group, which is an elite Pakistani commando group.
This is in the 90s.
This is 90s, and it's also today.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold your thought, Mr. Saleh, and take a very quick break. You're watching Indian Standard Time, and I'm in conversation with Mr. Amrullah Saleh. Please don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching Indian Standard Time, and I'm in conversation with Mr. Amrullah Saleh. Mr. Saleh, you were talking a little bit about the history of the Pakistani establishment. Do you want to call it the ISI, or do you want to call it the Pakistan Army? Who are these people?
I would rather call it the Pakistani establishment, because ISI, for what it does in Afghanistan or in the greater region to promote the foreign policy of Pakistan through violence and means of promoting extremism, it has the blessing of the Pakistani establishment, which means those who have interest in a status quo in a country being dominated by the army. So it's not army alone, it is army, it is the ISI, the intelligence, and it is also a set of political leaders who have never dared throughout the history of Pakistan to challenge this dirty game of their intelligence service.
Okay, tell me a little bit about what happened in 2007. You were still intelligence chief in Afghanistan, and I believe you had evidence which you presented to then Pakistan President General Pervez Musharraf about Osama bin Laden. Tell us a little bit about that.
In 2005, we came to a concrete belief that Osama bin Laden was not hiding in the tribal areas of Pakistan and Fatah or along the border with Afghanistan, because it's very difficult to hide in those areas. He must be in the settled areas of Pakistan. He must be in the cities of Pakistan. So as we have it in our profession, we enhanced the access of our sources, and we developed more sources to track down Al-Qaeda operatives, both in the tribal areas, and see the wider network in the entire country of Pakistan. So we were watching Karachi, we were watching Islamabad, Peshawar, and Quetta. We narrowed it down not to exactly Abbottabad, but we narrowed it down to Mansehra, which is about 12 miles from Abbottabad. We spotted Al-Qaeda safe houses there. We spotted communications of Al-Qaeda in Mansehra, regular communication between Mansehra tribal areas and between tribal areas and Afghanistan. So we established the link. Although it was to a degree sketchy, not exactly actionable, but it was giving enough both solid ground and evidence to the Pakistanis to act. So I was accompanying President Karzai to Pakistan, and we had a meeting.
This is in 2007.
In the meeting, the Pakistan side was led by President Musharraf and his army chief and his intelligence chief.
So then Army Chief Ashfaq Yani.
Then the army chief was Musharraf himself.
Okay, sure, of course.
Ashfaq Kayani
was his ISI chief.
ISI chief.
Yeah.
And the Afghan side was President Karzai was accompanied by Defense Minister, National Security Advisor Espanta, and myself, and also a few others. So there started the 1+3 meeting. So it was Musharraf with his army, with his intelligence chief and one more person, President Karzai, and with 3 of his ministers. So we discussed the situation in the region and why Afghanistan was not stabilized.
Mm-hmm.
We very, very politely brought into the attention of President Musharraf that his government and his intelligence was aiding the Taliban. And by virtue of aiding the Taliban and having this policy, conducive policy of allowing Taliban to operate out of Pakistani soil, Al-Qaeda was also operating out of Pakistani soil, and we had both circumstantial evidence and to some degree hard evidence suggesting presence of bin Laden in Mansehra.
Okay.
So President Karzai asked me to hand over physically the dossier we had prepared with geocodes and all the intelligence we had to Pakistan president.
Geocoordinates.
Geocoordinates was also part of the dossier,
Okay.
which was narrowing down the area, the villages, the street where we had spotted Al-Qaeda safe houses.
All right.
This was not tribal areas. This was settled Pakistani cities.
Okay. And what did Musharraf say?
Well, when I handed over the dossier to Musharraf, and page 1 was location of possible location of bin Laden and Mullah Omar, he didn't read beyond half of the page.
Okay.
And he banged both the dossier and he banged the table and he said, "This is nonsense. I am not president of the Banana Republic. Pakistan is a solid, strong country, and Pakistan army is professional army, and our intelligence is professional. And if I know where Mullah Omar is, I will take my gun and go and shoot him myself."
So they were completely not willing to listen to you. But did you?
It was not the way he spoke. I was amazed to see there was no composure of a president. There was no stature of a president. There was no the conversation was not dignified enough to say this was coming from president of a nuclear state. It was, I dare to say it, but it was a very cheap conversation from their side, banging the tables, losing temper, and calling the Afghan intelligence lowly.
Mr. Saleh, I'm going to take a very quick break again, just
Okay.
one, and we'll come back very soon to this conversation. Please keep watching, don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching this very special edition of Indian Standard Time, and I'm in conversation with Mr. Amrullah Saleh, the former intelligence czar of Afghanistan. Mr. Saleh, before our break, you were telling me about how Musharraf was completely unwilling to listen to the documentation that you had collected on the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden, which is very close to Abbottabad, which is where the Americans subsequently found him. But tell me, did you give this intelligence to the Americans as well?
Yes, we had given it already to the Americans, and we shared it with Americans afterwards. Musharraf reacted that way because I suspect, and I still believe, he was not expecting to be confronted with such solid evidence.
But do you think he knew? Do you think they knew already? What are you saying? Are you saying that Musharraf knew where Osama bin Laden was?
What I told Musharraf, I said, look, we do not say your army is not professional. We do not say your intelligence is not professional. We are here to tell you they are so professional that they have kept these people, sometimes hibernating, sometimes operating, and that's what we are presenting to you.
So then Pakistan Army Chief Ashfaq Kiani, who subsequently became...
He was
then ISI Chief, Ashfaq Kiani, who subsequently became Army Chief. He knew where Osama bin Laden was?
My belief till today is yes, because we did meet again in Langley in Washington, and the CIA prepared a tripartite meeting, and they put me in front of Kayani to confront him. Throughout my career as intelligence chief of Afghanistan, I do not remember a single moment Pakistanis being able to look into my eyes and say, this is wrong. Because they knew I was not wrong, I was not lying.
Including Ashfaq Kiani.
Oh, yes. I had the same meeting with Ashfaq Kiani in Bagram in 2006. I presented him evidence of Taliban safe houses and training centers in Pakistan. He said, "How do you know these?" I said, "General, let me offer a blasphemous proposal. I give you my sources with the guarantee from the Americans so that my sources will escort your officers and take them to Taliban safe houses in your cities." He said, again, he lost temper and he said, "You are telling me that you spy in my country?" I said, "That's my job. Since you do not show trust in my intelligence, I am ready to do this blasphemous thing of giving you my source so they can show you where the Taliban are not hiding but working in your country against us."
So what does this mean, Mr. Saleh? Does this mean that even in the last 10 years, there have been 2 civilian governments in Pakistan? First led by Asif Ali Zardari of the Pakistan People's Party, and since last year led by Mian Nawaz Sharif of the PMLN. 2 different political parties in control, or they have civilian control in Pakistan.
Right.
Are you saying today that Afghanistan is in the middle of a change, of a political change with the presidential elections? Now, are you saying that the Pakistani establishment is still in control over its policy in Afghanistan?
Well, I think both for Indians and for Afghans to believe for a second that there is something called civilian control, we will be fooling and deceiving ourselves. Pakistan is a military-run country, and the military basically survives on generating a threat to the Pakistani people, saying, if you don't give the bulk of the budget to us, the bulk of the resources, India will eat you, or Afghanistan and Indians will sandwich you. This is this fictional threat they have created.
So what do they do now? What do they do now that Afghanistan, in the last 12 years, you're evolving into a brand new country in so many ways?
We have evolved,
Yes.
but they are stuck in 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Okay.
They are strategically stuck in time. They are not appreciating and grasping the change, both the change in Afghanistan and the change in India.
But you know, a lot of Indians, analysts, think tankers, policy wonks, still believe that the Pakistani establishment believes in its old concept of strategic depth inside Afghanistan. Would you agree with that?
I very, very much hope that India is not reawakened by another Mumbai or Parliament attack, because Pakistan has not changed.
What are you saying? Is that a warning?
It's not a warning, but you know, when you have a period of lull, then you try to imagine that Pakistan has changed. It has not changed. It's a matter of time before they strike again, bite us or bite part of India. In Afghanistan, they constantly hurt us. They attack us almost every day. We have not seen change in the basics of Pakistani strategy, which is keeping the Taliban as a proxy army to destabilize Afghanistan.
Including the elections? Do you think that they want to destabilize the political situation around the presidential election?
You see, the agony is, the tragedy is, it is no longer Pakistan denying that they are with Taliban. They have put a price tag on the Taliban. They say, both the Americans to the Afghans, yes, they are with us. We can facilitate talks if you pay these prices, these costs.
What does that mean?
Well, it means reducing foreign independence of Afghanistan and its foreign policy, reducing democracy in Afghanistan, dictating us who should be friends with, enemies with.
And that continues. Are you saying that continues?
Yeah, because in 2011, the Pakistanis came with a very specific dossier to Afghan president, and they had 5 demands. Demand 1 was, okay, if Mr. President of Afghanistan, if you want us to facilitate talks with Taliban, we need Afghanistan and Pakistan to create a strategic framework for our relationship, and that relationship should involve these demands. A, India should be evicted from South and East Afghanistan.
Okay.
What does it mean, evicted?
Meaning shut down the consulates.
Well, I mean, it had to be defined, but that was demand one. Demand two, 1/3 of the Afghan Army officer corps be trained in Pakistan. Demand three was Afghanistan should not sign a strategic partnership agreement with Americans.
With Americans?
No, they said.
Or with India?
Or with India.
Okay.
And we will fill the void. That's what they had said. You don't need partnership with Americans. Demand four was in Afghanistan and Pakistan should speak about security of the border. They don't call it border negotiations because it's a very touchy issue for them, so they call it security of the border.
Okay.
Demand fifth was Afghanistan and Pakistan talk about water sharing and water because we have shared rivers, which is good. I mean, it should have been done. And demand six was that in South and East Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, and Afghanistan should create a consortium with the to have monopoly for extractive industries of all sorts, and
Copper,
there should
gold,
whatever,
whatever,
and there should be no Indian company operating in these areas of Afghanistan. Which brings us to one point: Pakistan's policy in Afghanistan is India-centric.
That just as Osama bin Laden was found in Abbottabad in 2010 by the Americans, do you think that there are other senior Al-Qaeda figures like al-Zawahiri? Where is he? Nobody knows where he is.
I think the easy way to find al-Zawahiri is capture those guys who have gone from Pakistan to Qatar for the so-called negotiations. Give them a little tough time and they will tell you which Pakistan city Zawahiri is hiding.
And where do you think he's hiding?
He's hiding in settled areas of Pakistan. And I know, like back of my hand, some people in Pakistan establishment knows where he is done hiding. Because every single senior Taliban or Al-Qaeda who have either surfaced or captured or killed have been found in Pakistan.
So you're willing to put your reputation on saying that al-Zawahiri, the senior most Al-Qaeda leader, is in Pakistan today?
I have not made a mistake in the last 14 years, and I don't think my next bit will be wrong. So.
Okay, my last question, my absolutely last question, is on the Mumbai attacks.
Right.
It's 5.5 years since the attacks took place.
Mm-hmm.
And we are nowhere, India is nowhere close to finding out what happened, why it happened, who these people are.
Yeah.
We believe that there were rogue elements inside the Pakistan ISI. What do you think?
No, I think India knows deeply who did it, why they did it, and who were behind it. What we need to do is India harden further its own security structures and also help Afghanistan harden its own security structures. We need to have a much more, far closer cooperation between our security agencies because policy of appeasement towards Pakistan and policy of imagination that they might change will not work.
But what about the policy? Are you saying then that your own president, Hamid Karzai, he talks about a lot of the Taliban as his Afghan brothers? Would you consider that appeasement?
President Karzai is of the view that he can peel off the Taliban. He can, by calling them brothers, he can bring the expendable Taliban on his part,
right,
and then isolate the leadership and the non-expendables, the hardcore.
Who are in the sanctuaries inside Pakistan.
That has not worked so far, and it will not work. Because the expendable Taliban, of course they are expendable and they are not decision makers, they are the ones who blow up themselves, they are being used like bullets or guns. But the infrastructure which at industrial level creates violence and terrorists and send them to Afghanistan, it's a Pakistan-based industry.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do not dismantle that industry either through tough talk or through bilateral agreement or pressure, just by either luring the expendables away or killing them, this will not finish.
So, and in this very sensitive situation that you have inside Afghanistan today,
Right.
around the presidential elections, a new president will soon take power
Right.
in Afghanistan. Do you think that tension and instability will increase, or do you think that things will
The
improve?
greatest achievement we have is Taliban have lost politically. There is no political message. It's all violence and killing.
Mhm.
Afghanistan,
And the people are fed up.
They are fed up, and the Afghan soft power has massively increased.
Okay.
The number of educated, the number of the movement of people within the country, the interaction, the massive liberties we have enjoyed in the last 13 years, our close relationship with the world and with India, unprecedented in our history. For Taliban to reverse it entirely, it's a pipe dream. They will not be able to do it. But what they are able to do is on daily basis kill civilians.
Yeah.
And that should be a shame for Pakistanis. They should sponsor something good. They should sponsor something positive. And we will not reject something positive from Islamabad. But unfortunately, it is constantly terror, violence, extremism. And it's not that the Taliban have lost their political appeal and message down to zero. Pakistan is now a household name in Afghanistan associated with terror and everything bad.
Mr. Amrullah Saleh, thank you so much for
Welcome.
talking to Raj Sabha TV.
Thank you.
I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. This has been an extremely interesting conversation. Next week, we will have another global leader or thinker. Till then, goodbye and good luck.